Weighing in at 250 pounds, Dick the Bruiser, Chicago's own wrestling legend. September 1st, 1972. This night hosted one of the greatest cage matches of all time. And trust me, this wasn't your grandma's wrestling. Dick the Bruiser was a head-busting, rule-breaking, riot-starting force of nature. He wasn't just in the business, he was the business. With 16 world championships under his belt, including the AWA World Heavyweight Championship and an incredible 13-time reign as WWA World Heavyweight Champion, he was a dominant force in the ring. Before wrestling, Bruiser was an NFL player, and he brought that same hard-hitting intensity into the squared circle. With his shaved head and a glare that could melt steel, he wasn't just playing a role, he lived it, 24/7. And if you need proof, let's rewind to one of wrestling's most infamous moments. In 1963, Bruiser was set to face Alex Karras, a Detroit Lions football player, in an upcoming match. To hype it up, they staged a fake fight at a bar owned by Karras, just to stir the crowd and sell tickets. But things went way south when a relative of Karras' business partner saw the fight and thought it was real. He jumped in to defend Karras, grabbing a pool cue and cracking Bruiser across the forehead. Big mistake. Bruiser went nuts, blood pouring down his face as he chased the guy around the bar. Chaos erupted, chairs flying, fists swinging, and over 300 people caught in the mayhem. Even the police had trouble controlling the scene when they arrived to find the bar completely wrecked. Bruiser was slapped with an aggravated assault charge and hit with a $50,000 fine. But did it ruin his career? Nope. If anything, it only made him more famous. Fans were obsessed with the drama, and when his match with Karras finally happened, the crowd packed the venue, eager to witness the madness in the ring. Let's go back even further, to 1957, when Bruiser was involved in another legendary brawl, this time at Madison Square Garden. That night, Bruiser and his partner, Dr. Jerry Graham, faced off against fan favorites Antonino Rocca and Edouard Carpentier. The crowd was electric, cheering Rocca and Carpentier, booing Bruiser and Graham like crazy. You could feel the tension in the air, like a bomb about to go off. And when the match ended, that's when all hell really broke loose. Graham and Bruiser kept fighting even after the bell rang, sending the crowd into a frenzy. People were on their feet, shouting, throwing chairs, and even jumping into the ring. The chaos escalated so quickly that it turned into an all-out brawl, not just between the wrestlers, but among the fans as well. It got so out of control that the police had to intervene, and it took over 60 officers to restore order. 2 policemen were injured in the mayhem, and Madison Square Garden was left in ruins. This wasn't just a scuffle, it was a full-blown riot. The New York State Athletic Commission was furious. As a result, they banned Dick the Bruiser from wrestling in New York, a punishment that lasted for years. This was a huge deal, considering Madison Square Garden was the pinnacle of the wrestling world. But if you think that stopped Bruiser, think again. The riot only added to his legend. Fans loved him for his unpredictability and raw intensity. You never knew what he would do next, and that made him one of the most talked-about wrestlers of his time. One thing that set Bruiser apart was his stiff wrestling style. While most wrestlers carefully choreographed moves to minimize injury, Bruiser didn't hold back. He threw real punches, headbutts, and forearms, often leaving his opponents bruised and battered. His rough tactics didn't just thrill the audience, they also caused friction backstage. Many wrestlers resented him for his stiff hits, and real fights occasionally broke out behind the scenes. Bruiser's fiery temper and unpredictable nature meant that any planned wrestling match could suddenly turn into an actual fight. But that's exactly what fans loved about him, the sense of real danger. Every time he stepped into the ring, you never knew what was going to happen, and that made his matches must-watch events. And the best part? His wild behavior wasn't just for show. In real life, Dick the Bruiser was just as tough as he seemed, always ready for a fight. A fight, whether in the ring, a bar, or even a parking lot, was second nature to him. But beyond the brawls, he was also a master showman, blurring the lines between reality and performance. Looking back, it's clear that Dick the Bruiser's career was as chaotic as it was legendary. Whether he was tearing up a bar, inciting a riot, or landing a hit a little too hard in the ring, he left an unforgettable mark on wrestling history. Sadly, the wrestling world lost a giant on November 10, 1991, in Largo. At 62 years old, Dick the Bruiser, a man who seemed larger than life both inside and outside the ring, was gone. Tonight, Hendrik Sandy profiles the man who helped ignite the pro wrestling craze, the world's most dangerous wrestler, Dick the Bruiser. For over 3 decades, he dominated professional wrestling. Despite standing just 5'10", he towered over his opponents with sheer presence. Even at 62, he remained unbelievably strong and dedicated to fitness, not just as a gym-goer, but as a lifelong athlete who pushed his limits. That dedication, however, led to tragedy. During an especially intense workout, Bruiser suffered a rare but devastating injury. He ruptured a blood vessel in his esophagus. This type of injury can occur when lifting heavy weights while holding one's breath, causing immense internal pressure. For Bruiser, the result was massive internal bleeding, silent at first, but ultimately fatal. His death sent shockwaves through the wrestling world. He was seen as indestructible, a force of nature who could withstand anything. The idea that something as routine as lifting weights could bring him down was almost impossible to grasp. But even legends have beginnings. Before the world knew the unstoppable Bruiser, there was a young man fighting to make a name for himself. "I started wrestling in the 50s, and it was just like it is today, full of show business," Bruiser once said. "That's how I got popular. Back then, it was the Gorgeous George era. He had curls, threw gold hair clips to the crowd, and the wrestlers followed his lead." Dick Afflis wasn't born a star, but he had something even better: relentless determination. Growing up in Delphi, Indiana, his early life was simple and small town. But everything changed during World War II when his mother found work in Indianapolis, prompting the family to move. It was there, in the big city, that Dick discovered his love for sports. At Shortridge High School, he joined the football team as a freshman, showing a competitive fire that set him apart. But life had its setbacks. When his mother lost her job, the family had to move back to Delphi, a devastating blow as his new school didn't even have a football team. For a kid who lived and breathed sports, this was crushing. But Dick wasn't one to sit around and sulk. Instead, he made a bold move, leaving home to stay at the YMCA in Lafayette, Indiana, just so he could attend Lafayette Jefferson High School. There, he not only played football, but also joined the wrestling team. Living alone as a teenager wasn't easy, but Dick thrived. He poured everything into his training, proving to himself and everyone else that he could overcome anything. After high school, he went to Purdue University to play football before transferring to the University of Nevada, Reno. However, he never finished his degree. In his 3rd year, he was kicked off the team, but setbacks never stopped him. While in Reno, he continued playing football and worked nights as a nightclub bouncer. Breaking up bar fights and handling rowdy customers toughened him up even more. It was the perfect preparation for the career that awaited him. Then came 1951, a turning point. Dick was drafted into the NFL. Imagine the thrill of hearing your name called, knowing you're about to play professional football. He joined the Green Bay Packers as a lineman and played for 4 seasons, appearing in all 48 regular season games. The Packers weren't a great team at the time, but for Dick, it was just another step in his journey toward becoming a legend. At the time, his team struggled to win games and rarely ranked high in the standings. But Dick stood out. He was tough, reliable, and gritty, the kind of player you could count on in every play. However, the game wasn't kind to him. One day, he took a hard hit to the throat, damaging his vocal cords and leaving him with a permanently gravelly voice. Most would have seen this as a setback, but for Dick, it would later become part of his larger-than-life persona. By 1954, Dick was ready for something new. Football had been good to him, but he was drawn to the world of professional wrestling. It wasn't just a career change, it was a leap into the unknown. Wrestling wasn't like football. It wasn't just about strength. It was about personality, showmanship, and connecting with the audience. Dick trained under Vern Gong, one of the greats, who taught him how to blend his natural toughness with the craft of wrestling. Before long, Dick Afflis became Dick the Bruiser, a name that suited him perfectly. He was loud, brash, and unstoppable. In 1955, he started wrestling in Chicago, facing some of the biggest names in the sport, including Gine and Lou Thez. The matches were brutal, but Dick had something special. He didn't just fight, he put on a show. Fans couldn't get enough. That gravelly voice, a result of his old football injury, made him sound like he'd been through 1,000 battles. His fiery interviews only added to his tough guy image. He was larger than life, like a character straight out of a storybook, and fans loved every second of it. Of course, even Dick the Bruiser had his share of challenges. One of his most memorable live TV matches ended in a rare loss to Cowboy Bob Ellis. But if there was one thing fans knew about Dick, it was that he didn't stay down for long. He came back stronger, defeating Ellis twice in rematches at Detroit's Olympia Arena. Then, in 1964, Dick made a game-changing move that would leave a lasting impact on professional wrestling. Along with his friend and fellow wrestler Wilbur Snyder, he bought the Indianapolis NWA wrestling promotion from its longtime owner, Jim Barnett. They had a vision and wanted to make the promotion their own. Dick wasted no time putting his stamp on it. He renamed it the World Wrestling Association, WA, a bold, powerful name just like him. And in true wrestling fashion, he crowned himself the first WWA champion. It may have seemed egotistical, but in wrestling, that's just part of the game. The WWA became his playground, and he was the king. Even though WWA was an independent promotion, Dick made a smart move by working with the much larger American Wrestling Association, AWA, run by Vern Gagne. This partnership helped both promotions thrive, allowing them to share wrestlers, recognize each other's championships, and put on exciting shows that drew fans from all over. One of the highlights of Dick's career was his partnership with the Crusher, another larger-than-life wrestler. Together, they formed one of the most dominant tag teams of the era, winning the AWA World Tag Team Championship 5 times. Their rough, brawling style thrilled audiences, and to add to the fun, wrestling promoters billed the Crusher as Dick's cousin, even though they weren't actually related. Wrestling has always been about storytelling, and this little twist made them even more memorable. During his time running WWA, Dick also helped shape wrestling history in other ways. One of his biggest contributions was giving a young, cocky wrestling manager named Bobby Heenan the nickname The Weasel. Fans loved to hate Heenan, and the nickname became one of the most famous in wrestling history. Even today, it remains a key part of Heenan's legacy. For years, WWA thrived, running from 1964 until 1989. But as time went on, the wrestling world changed. The World Wrestling Federation, WWF, run by Vince McMahon, was growing fast. It became a national phenomenon, signing top talent, securing major TV deals, and drawing fans away from smaller promotions like WWA. By the late 1980s, it was clear that the wrestling landscape was no longer the same. Dick decided it was time to step away, and in 1989, the WWA officially closed its doors. Even as it came to an end, Dick the Bruiser's legacy lived on. In 1971, he teamed up with wrestling legend The Sheik to challenge for the WWF Tag Team Championship, facing Crazy Luke Graham and Tarzan Tyler. Though they didn't win, the match was a testament to Dick's enduring presence in the wrestling world. But Dick wasn't just a wrestler, he was a larger-than-life personality, especially in Indianapolis. With his tough guy persona, gravelly voice, and undeniable charisma, he became a local hero. People admired him not just for what he did in the ring, but for who he was outside of it. One of his biggest fans was a young David Letterman, who grew up watching Dick wrestle in Indianapolis. Years later, when Letterman became a famous talk show host, he paid tribute to Dick in a unique way by naming his show's band the World's Most Dangerous Band, a playful nod to Dick's nickname, the World's Most Dangerous Wrestler. Dick's influence even extended to Detroit rock radio in the 1980s. Radio personality George Bayer created a character named Richard T. Bruiser, an impersonation of Dick. The character became so popular that Dick himself joined in on the fun, appearing in TV commercials for the station. These ads showcased not just his tough persona, but also his sense of humor. Dick the Bruiser was more than just a wrestler. He was an icon. Whether in the ring, on TV, or in his community, he left a lasting impact that fans would never forget. Dick had a willingness to laugh at himself, which only made fans love him more. Even after retiring from wrestling, he remained deeply involved in the business. He became a color commentator for the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, GLOW, a women's wrestling promotion founded by David McLane. McLane had started his career under Dick's guidance in the WWA, making it a full-circle moment for both of them. Beyond commentary, Dick also worked as a talent agent for World Championship Wrestling, WCW, scouting and developing new stars. In 1990, he briefly returned to the spotlight as a special guest referee for the main event at Starrcade, one of WCW's biggest events of the year. While his wrestling career was larger than life, Dick's personal life was just as meaningful to him. He was married to Louise, and together they raised their family. He also had an adopted son, John Carney, who spent a lot of time with him. His son-in-law, who wrestled under the name Dick the Bruiser Jr., carried on the family legacy in the independent wrestling circuit. Sadly, Dick's life was cut short on November 10, 1991. While weightlifting at home with John, he suffered a ruptured blood vessel in his esophagus, causing internal bleeding. He passed away later that day at Suncoast Hospital in Largo, Florida, near his winter home. His wife, Louise, shared the heartbreaking news, and fans around the world mourned the loss of one of wrestling's true legends. Dick the Bruiser's legacy lives on. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was an entertainer, a storyteller, and a symbol of an era when wrestling was raw, gritty, and filled with larger-than-life characters. For those who watched him in his prime, he wasn't just a figure on TV. He was a hero, someone who could take on anyone and come out on top. Though he may be gone, the impact he made on wrestling and its fans will never be forgotten. His story is a testament to how passion and determination can create something truly unforgettable. If you enjoyed this story about Dick the Bruiser and his incredible career, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos on wrestling legends and their amazing legacies. Let us know in the comments who you'd like us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.